Hollywood and the actor-writer strike that's brought production to a standstill. A rare show of force from the creators, actors, and writers like this hasn't been seen together on strike since 1960, back when Ronald Reagan was president of the Screen Actors Guild. At issue is money, of course, and how to adapt the payment structure for the streaming era. But the two sides appear awfully far apart. Disney CEO Bob Iger says the expectations of writers and actors are, quote, just not realistic, while those on strike say they're just asking for their fair share. Here now to discuss is a writer for the acclaimed show The Bear, Alex O'Keefe, and Sean Sharma, an actor on The Chosen. Welcome, both of you. So, Alex, let's start right there. Let's get you to respond to what Disney CEO Bob Iger said at a conference just a few days ago. Let's play it for our viewers, and then we'll get you to respond after.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Okay, so Alex, there's no denying that there are challenges that the industry is facing right now. We're coming out of COVID. We're switching. A lot of companies are dealing with declining linear and focus on streaming. That having been said, how do you respond to what he just said, and what exactly are you demanding?
Yeah, it's very funny that this multi-millionaire CEO says that we're not being realistic. You pan out, there's a beautiful Sun Valley background there. And if you pan out even more, you'd see a fleet of private jets. It's funny who gets to imagine in this world, who gets to be unrealistic, because we're living in the wildest imaginations of a few billionaires who've designed our economy exclusively for themselves. And increasingly, there is a 1%, and the rest of us are the 99%. And that is why you're seeing not just the writers go on strike, not just the actors go on strike. UPS is gearing to go on strike. Workers across Los Angeles are going on strike, because the same thing is happening across every part of their machine. And these media companies, you know, about 6 corporations control 90% of the media, I believe. They control so much of the economy, and they have rigged it for their profit exclusively. And their next step is to replace human beings with machines. Replace drivers with machines, replace actors with machines, replace us all with artificial intelligence. So this strike is at the forefront of the fight against AI, to actually regulate AI, which many scientists and leading AI experts have said has an existential threat to humanity. We don't need more existential threats. We have enough, all right? So let's just focus on actually paying workers what they deserve. The workers who kept us alive through the pandemic, the writers and the actors who kept us entertained in our darkest moments, let's pay them what they deserve. I wrote for a very big show called The Bear. I made very little money. I saw no profits in it. I lived below the poverty line working on this show that has made millions of dollars for FX and Disney at large. This is not how the world has to be. There is enough wealth in this industry alone for us all to have success. And for 100 years in this economy, in this industry, that's how it worked. It was a common expectation. This would be a good union middle-class career, not for the big actors, but for everyone who makes the machine run. And now we are not even allowed to be in the middle class. We are told just to be grateful to be there. No, we're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore. We are going to stand up for ourselves, and these billionaires, they're about to get a reality check, because workers have all the power. We make this economy run, and we will shut it down until we get our fair share.
Let's talk about the reality check here, because looking at the numbers itself, it does appear that the Screenwriters Guild, in citing a survey and data going back a few years ago, that the writer-producer weekly pay has dropped 4%, or 23% adjusted for inflation, since 2013. Actors made a median salary of $46,960 in 2021. The best paid 25% made $60,000 that year, while the lowest paid 25% made $30,000. Sean, the impact that this has had on your career and where you are right now, you are not earning Tom Cruise level millions of dollars salary. How has your life changed as an actor in terms of being able to afford even your basic bills?
Well, I'm very fortunate right now because I struck the lottery with the kind of show that I'm on right now that I get to tell. But this is 20 years into a professional career where I was making a living off of the co-star and guest star and smaller roles that most of us do for an entire career. Not everybody gets to be a series performer or a lead in films, and certainly not at the star level where you get to make a really large and wealthy living. And so 87% of our members do not make more than $26,000 a year. Only 12.7% of our membership qualifies for health insurance. And so that should tell you right now that when you're watching a show or a movie, look at the person who's the star and look at everybody else around them, including all the voices you hear. Those are your working class members working for the bare minimum, which we call scale. And so if you adjust scale for inflation, what our employers are trying to do right now in our negotiation is lock us into rates that will mean we will be earning less in 2026 than we earned adjusted for inflation in 2020. And that's just not acceptable because that's just our base pay, but the costs of living have gone up everywhere. So we're being really squeezed out. And part of this is because our business model has completely changed. We used to be on television where we get paid every time something runs. The more successful a show is, the more advertising they brought in, the more they could afford to pay the performers. So we had a share in the success of those projects. And then, companies like Netflix, they came in with an entirely new business model where they use predatory pricing to be able to get subscribers, and they forced Wall Street into examining their business model, and all the other companies and networks tried to emulate their business model, only to find out that it's really important to make sure that you cut in the people you depend on in the share of the revenue that is being generated, or you essentially starve out the people that you depend on the most for the value of that entertainment.
Yeah, Alex, can you talk more about how the residual model of payment has changed so dramatically in such a short period of time?
Yeah, the residual model was won by the last time actors and writers went on strike together in 1960. And what it said is, if you make something that's very popular, that has a lot of success, you get a share in the success, you get a share in the profit. Makes a lot of sense. With streaming, they have made it so actors, writers, we're getting less than $1. We're getting cents on the dollar, residuals, and I'm talking about big shows, even Abbott Elementary or The Bear. You're getting no money from the success. And what the studios claim, we're not making any money. We're just doing this for the love. I really doubt that. I really doubt that these billionaires are doing it for the love of the craft, because if you work with them, they don't care about the art. They care about the money. But they're stealing all the profits. They're not sharing it. They have broken the contract. They have broken the code between worker and employer. And that is why they have forced this strike. And they have refused to negotiate with us, which is why they are burning down Hollywood. And it's up to the workers of Hollywood to build a better Hollywood. Let me tell you the end result, the consequences of not having these residuals. That when I won the WGA Award, Best Outstanding Comedy for The Bear, I went to that award show with a negative bank account, a bow tie I bought on credit, a suit that I had to ask my brother and my mom, can you give me a little bit of money so I can get a suit? I was broke. I was absolutely broke. And yeah, I got the Gilded Award. I walked the red carpet. But all that glitters is not gold. I don't do this to be rich, and I don't do this to be famous. I come from poverty. I just want a middle class lifestyle. I just want to not worry about bills. I don't want to eat ramen when I'm working on one of the biggest shows in America. I think that is completely ridiculous. And if I can't at least make a middle class income doing this, there's no chance for young black people, young people of color, young people in general. It's hopeless unless we stand up. Right now, my generation is being offered nothing, and really being told you are going to be replaced by machines if you act up. Well, this is now or never. This is our shot to actually show the vision of what this generation can build, the economy this can build, an economy that works for everyone, a Hollywood that works for everyone. No more abuse, no more exploitation, no more misery. This should be the dream job. Yeah. They call this place the Dream Factory. But if you actually work on the factory floor, you see how much exploitation and how much they grind these workers down to dust. And it's not just writers or actors. It's IATSE, it's Teamsters, it's the truck drivers who drive the cameras. It's the people who set up the lights. Everyone is being ground to dust right now across the entire economy. You push people to their limit, they push back.
Alex, I heard you in another interview jokingly say that you've become famous for being broke, but I think this is a really eye-opening experience for not only the industry, but for consumers who may, as you said, assume that all that glitters is gold in Hollywood and that everyone is rich and making millions of dollars. For your first season on The Bear, you said you earned $43,000, or at least that's what you were offered. And you thought that was huge bucks at the time until you realized exactly how that money needed to be divvied up and what you would be left with. Can you also talk about what the writing circumstances were for you as well? Because you weren't in some posh swank room with food catered in for you along with your colleagues, as many would imagine. You were sitting at home with a space heater in the midst of the pandemic, writing and perhaps getting some creative ideas from that,
yes.
but writing it in a much less sexy fashion.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a working class guy. I'm just some guy, to be honest with you. And I'm very grateful The Bear gave me the opportunity to write about the working class. That's been my dream for so long. Now, coming from the outside in, I assumed that, you know, you get the plane ticket, you go out, you know, the red carpet's rolled out. No, not whatsoever, especially if you are young, if you're a writer of color, you get exploited, you know, and it has nothing to do with anyone who worked on the show. It has to do with the studios. The fact is the studio didn't believe in a show about the working class. They didn't think it was going to have appeal. They might say whatever they want to say now. That is the truth. They didn't give us any money for the first season. That's why it takes place basically in one location. And they said, well, you have this young writer. We don't have to pay them much, you know, diversity waiver it, and basically free labor. And we don't have to fly them in. So I Zoomed from my apartment. And again, it was a surreal opportunity. And I am extremely, eternally grateful for it. But the fact is, because of that, I didn't have health insurance. I was not yet in the union. I was on Medicaid. I had asthma. I was freezing in my apartment because my radiator was out. My landlord died of COVID-19. I had no way to repair I would plug in the space heater. Sometimes all the power would go out. Episode 8, I actually had to go to a public library and whisper ideas very quietly, pitch, and the librarian would literally shush me. That is not how Hollywood should work. That is not a productive workplace. It is an absolutely ridiculous way to structure any kind of job in America. And a lot of workers have it far worse. The UPS workers who are about to go on strike, they don't have ACs in their cars. There was a worker last year in Los Angeles who died because they don't have AC. These are really small things, but on this, and for the scale of the business people, they just see it as numbers. But on the individual level, it means suffering and it means misery for the worker.
Yeah, you mentioned the UPS workers, some 340,000 are prepared to go on strike next month, and it does appear that United has reached a deal with pilots just now to increase their pay 40%, but this is an issue that permeates beyond just Hollywood. Sean, as far as an end game is concerned, it seems like both sides have really dug in and are waiting this out. I want to play sound for you from Barry Diller, a former industry executive who is still well connected, obviously, and what he said over the weekend about what led to this situation and a possible solution in terms of mediating. Take a listen.
The result of which is that there will be no programs. And at just the time strike is settled, that you want to gear back up, there won't be enough money. So this actually will have devastating effects if it is not settled soon. And the problem with settlement in this case is there's no trust between the parties.
So there's no trust, and he says a compromise would look something like perhaps the executives would take a 25% pay cut and the top actors and earners would take a 25% cut. Sean, what do you make of that proposal, and is he right to say there's just no trust on either side at this point?
Well, yeah, his proposed solution doesn't address our needs at all. It's not about how much the CEOs are making and the biggest stars are making. That wouldn't compensate the rest of us appropriately and cut us into the revenue that we generate for these companies. Certainly the CEOs are paid way too much, but that's because Wall Street is driving this behavior. Wall Street it drove this reckless spending these companies have been doing over the last few years, where they were all competing for subscribers. Then they found out that that wasn't going to be a sustainable business model, and We're also getting cut out of the residuals that we would ordinarily earn. We're getting smaller show orders of only a few episodes, not as many seasons, because as soon as they launch a new show, they get the subscribers. As soon as that levels off, they get us with a new show to try to attract more subscribers. So it's been a very abusive and gaslighting relationship with the studios and the networks, because it's like they're blaming us for their risk-taking on the backs of our work, while we're not getting paid the way that our contract is structured on the broadcast television and cable model. So what we need to rebuild trust is we need the studio executives to not go on record saying we want to hold out until these artists lose their homes, and they'll be so desperate that they'll have to accept whatever deal we put before them so we can continue to maximize profits and pay our executive bonuses that are tied to stock performance. I mean, it's like a repeat of the economic recession in 2008, where all these people get rich exploiting the working class Americans, and then they leave us holding the bag with a bailout. And that is not acceptable to do that to this creative community that is asking for such reasonable things, like to not be replaced by digital replicas of our name and likeness, which is how we make a living and how we've always made a living. There should be room for human participation. We shouldn't have to have our art form weaponized against us. The idea that we should be grateful for work, it's like every American is grateful to have the ability to feed their families, just because most of the work we do is behind closed doors that people never see. What they do see is the glamorized what happens on the screen. But this is working class people working really hard. Most of the work we do is never seen, and we don't deserve to have our passion for the arts be weaponized against us in the benefit of these billionaires and these studio executives that made a bad business decision. That was their fault. That is their responsibility to treat us fairly.
Well, this is an issue, as noted, is not coming to a resolution anytime soon, and it may actually be up to consumers at some point when they don't get their favorite movies or their favorite TV shows to stream and to watch, to really see where the blame ultimately lies and how far this can go. We can have a whole other conversation on AI, because as you know, this isn't just impacting Hollywood and your industry, it's impacting so many industries across the board.
Well, you can't have trust with people that threaten your livelihoods and say that we're not going to come and make a deal with you.
Yeah,
They can't have trust with people who say you're going to be homeless if you don't just completely surrender.
Listen, I know, Alex, you're going back on the picket line right now, and sadly, this doesn't look like anything's coming to an end anytime soon, which means we can continue to have this conversation. Please come back in the next couple of weeks and keep us posted as to where things stand on your end. We really appreciate your time, both of you, though, today, and best of luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, our next guest believes we should be looking to the skies to learn some important life lessons. Christian Cooper is a passionate